And because of what he saw in the liberty of his conscience, the ability to imagine and dream, and then to have the liberty to take his sweat and own his sweat and his effort and his ideas and work and produce, he created this musical that has literally revolutionized not just the United States, but the world in terms of this history of liberty. Incredible. Incredible. Do you know that when he decided to leave the show, do you know how much tickets went for? $10,000 a ticket. That was created from nothing because he had the ability to take his idea and put his effort that he owns and could own, and the idea that he could have that he owns, and that he could bless other people's lives and he would benefit from that. Let me give you the opposite example, right? What if you're in the same situation? You're a musician, you're a composer. You bless the world because you're a musician, you're a composer, but you live in 1939 in Germany, and you're a Jew. And so now you're in a concentration camp. And not only do you not have your instruments, you don't have your hair, you don't have your clothes, you probably don't even have the fillings in your teeth. You go to the bathroom when they tell you, if they tell you. You eat when they tell you, if they allow you. You work all day long as much as they tell you to work. You have no control over your liberty and your freedom. So you have this gift, and how can you express the gift? How can you bless people's lives? And are you accountable for blessing people's lives? And you've been endowed by your Creator with these unalienable rights. How much can you become and the expression of your Creator with this endowment of rights? Almost zero. You can choose how you want to react to your captors, but that's about it. That's our system. Never existed before. Never existed before. That's what we're talking about. So they built, so what did they do with that? They said, we've got these unalienable rights, and they said, okay, what we know is that men are angels. We know that. If men were angels, we wouldn't need any of this. Madison said, men are angels, we don't need this stuff. We don't need government. It's great. Men are angels. They weren't then, they still aren't now. And yet today we keep looking for white knights on horses to ride in and save things. Men are angels. So what are we going to do? They said, we're going to build a system. So endowed by their creators with unalienable rights among these life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. What's the purpose of government? Secure these rights. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That's it. I mean, that's the one question civics exam that we should ask every person in office, every person that's voting. What's the purpose of government? Secure these rights. Well, how did they do that? They said, okay, we're going to build a system. It's the most ingenious thing that's ever been devised. We're going to have two spheres of government. We're going to divide government. This counterintuitive idea that we're going to divide government into two spheres. There's a national sphere. We call that federal today. Federal was the name of the whole system. There's a national sphere, and there's the state sphere. And in this sphere, it's going to be few and defined powers. And in this sphere, it's going to be numerous and indefinite powers. I'll tell you a quick story. So 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago this week, was my 28th anniversary. And I'm such a romantic that I decided to invite my wife to go to Pagosa Springs, Colorado, to look at geodesic dome greenhouses. And because she's so kind and she humors me, she says, okay, honey, that sounds great. Let's go to Colorado and look at greenhouses for our anniversary. That sounds wonderful. And we did. Now they're great, by the way. They're really cool. I can't wait to get enough land to put one up. But there's also a hot spring resort spa in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which kind of redeemed me a little bit from my wild and crazy ideas. So we're at the hot spring. We looked at the greenhouses. Now it's time to sit in the hot spring, which was glorious, and have a massage. And so we're getting massages, and I'm in the massage room, and the masseuse in my room has a ponytail down to his backside. He's a transplant from New York. He's wearing Birkenstocks, and his mountain bike is in the massage room. Just reporting the facts. And we're talking as he's giving me the massage, and you know, as we get going, what do you do, and your name, where are you from, and when he says, what do you do? I said, well, I serve in the Utah legislature. Wow, that's fascinating. What kinds of things do you work on? And I think if I tell him federalism, it's probably not going to go anywhere. It's not going to mean anything, right? So I'm trying to figure, how do I give meaning to what this system is that we're working on restoring? I said, well, your mountain bike right there. What's written on the side of the tires of your mountain bike? I said, oh, the tire pressure. Yeah. Do you have any idea approximately what the tire pressure of your mountain bike tires should be? Oh, yeah, because I check it regularly. It's supposed to be 55 psi, 55 pounds per square inch pressure on the tires. Oh, wow, yeah. So, what if the front tire on your mountain bike had 105 pounds of pressure? And what if the back tire had less than 5 pounds of pressure? How would that work for you? It's like, oh, that'd be terrible. Like, oh, that'd be a problem. Yeah, that'd be a big problem. Well, what if the solution to your problem then is just riding harder? What if you just rode harder? No, that would probably make it worse. Oh, I know. The solution to your problem then would probably be if you got Lance Armstrong all hopped up on steroids and had him ride the bike. That would fix the problem. No, that would make it worse. Oh, well, I got an idea. What if the solution to your problem then were to whoever's riding the bike to have them steer it more to the right? Or maybe they should steer it more to the left. That would fix the problem, of course, right? No, that doesn't fix the problem. Well, what do we need to do? It's like, you gotta fix the bike. You gotta make sure that the tires are properly inflated. That's what I do. That's what I do in the state legislature. That's what I'm working on. It's called federalism. This idea that the front tire had few and defined powers, and right now it's so bloated it's about to explode. Mind you, this was August of 2016, right? Hillary Clinton had just made a pass through Colorado on her campaign, and then Trump, and I said, so why is, and so you got this front tire that's so bloated and about to explode, and the back tire in the States is so flat it's about to chew the rubber off the rim, and all we talk about is should Trump or Clinton ride the bike? And should they steer it to the right or should they steer it to the left? And what we're about is this ingenious system of restoring the proper pressure of the tires. That was this ingenious constitutional system that every nation in the world copied that never really fully duplicated. And we've allowed to devolve to such a state that it's so out of balance, our system's been polluted. In so many ways, it's been polluted. We can't even see the mountains. Our system's been polluted. And so what you're about is the very next line in the Declaration of Independence. It says, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from consent of the government. Who's that? It's us. That's us. We don't have a spectator support system. We have a participatory system. In fact, we're the sovereigns. Let me read you something. I love this quote. Let me see if I can find it quickly. In the ratification of the Constitution was itself a miracle that it was ever ratified. When they had the ratification debates in Massachusetts, John Hancock made this statement in the ratification debates. Gentlemen, as that being in whose hands is the government of all the nations of the earth, and who putteth down one and raiseth up another according to his sovereign pleasure, has given to the people of these states a rich and extensive country, and has in a marvelous manner given them a name and a standing among the nations of the world, and has blessed them with external peace and internal tranquility. I hope and pray that the gratitude of their hearts may be expressed by a proper use of those inestimable blessings, by the greatest exertions of patriotism, by establishing laws for the support of piety, religion, and morality, and by exhibiting on the great theater of the world those social, public, and private virtues which give more dignity to a people possessing their own sovereignty than the crowns and diadems afforded to sovereign princes. Possessing more sovereignty than the crowns and diadems of sovereign princes. What does that mean? possessing their own sovereignty. Imagine if you were the aging king of your country, the aging queen. You had a great run. You had a great run. You were good, you were wise, you were just, your people were blessed, you established wonderful laws for the safety and freedom and of your people, but you know, everybody's birth certificate expires. Right? That day comes for all of us. And you know your time is about up, and you want to make sure that your country continues in peace and prosperity. And so your grandson or your granddaughter is going to reign in your stead. What would you want them to know? What kinds of things should they know if they were going to be good and wise and just rulers of a country?
First and foremost, they need to know that they have to listen to those they serve.
Who they work for, right? They know what it's about, right? If they're going to be good, they want to look at the will of the people. What else should you know if you're going to govern wisely, justly? What kinds of things? I mean, it's a long list. It could be a whole number of things. What are some of the things you'd want to know? You'd want your grandson to know.
Human nature.
What's that?
Human nature.
Human nature. You certainly want to know human nature, right? What else? What's that?
The golden rule.
The golden rule, right? The golden rule. Certainly, maybe something about the operation of law, economics, history, languages, culture, diplomacy, administration. I mean, certainly economics, right? We want to know something about that if they were going to be the sovereign. A people possessing their own sovereignty more than the diadems and crowns of sovereign princes. That's us. We're the boss in this system. And to be treated like the boss, we have to act like the boss, and that's been given to us in the Constitution, specifically in Article 5 of the Constitution. It provides a remedy that if our system's been polluted, if it's out of balance in any manner, we have the opportunity to restore that pressure in the tires, to restore the system. I'll tell you a quick story. I was teaching an American government class down at Utah Valley University. I was so excited. I love teaching. I love being in classes. And I got there a little bit early, and there's a candy machine right next to the classroom. And I thought, well, I'm here early. I'll get a little snack before the class starts. And I walk up to the machine, and there's someone in front of me. And he's just putting his money in, and he's making his selection. And you've all seen this, right? He's making his selection, and the little wheel turns about a quarter of a turn. And his candy bar just hangs right there. And you know what happens next, right? Right? I mean, he's just rocking and beating and kicking and sticking his arm up and just abusing the machine. And I'm standing right behind him. I'm like, buddy, I want that thing to work when it's my turn. And I thought, well, I have my lesson from the class. I scrapped the lesson that I had, and I walked in and taught the kids about the candy machine. So we're in an age now where we don't care who's behind this. I want my candy bar now. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what the machine's like for you when it's your turn. I don't care. I want my candy bar now, and I don't care what I have to do to the machine to get it. Well, it's time to help people understand it's about the machine, it's about the bicycle, it's about the system. We still don't have angels. It's not about who rides the bike. It's not about which direction the bike goes. It's about fixing the bike. George Washington said this statement in his farewell address. This is considered one of the greatest governing documents. It was required study for years. Some of us, when we were growing up, those were the things you studied. You studied the Declaration. You studied the Articles of Confederation, you studied the Constitution, you studied George Washington's farewell address. In his farewell address, he said this statement: if in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the governing power, the constitutional powers, are ever in any particular wrong, if they're polluted, let them be changed by an amendment in the way the Constitution designates. Let there be no change by usurpation. This is how free governments are destroyed. So we have a choice. We have a choice. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so grateful you're here. That I don't think there's anything more important. You know, we can be enamored by people thinking their turn to ride the bike is going to change everything. We can be swayed by, oh, if we just go to the right a little more, we just go to the left a little more, and we keep riding that bike, and in that condition, we're probably doing more harm than good. Until we say, it's time for some repair and maintenance, for some upgrade. I have a colleague, dear friend, I love him, he's such a dear man, he's not coming back this year, but very opposed to any type of use of Article 5. And we had discussions, and I said, Ed, help me understand. I said, you know, what's going on? And we talk about this, and I said, Ed, you know, wasn't it really great that when 5 justices of the Supreme Court decided they were going to completely alter the notion of the protection of life in the Constitution? Wasn't it great that they called a big meeting and they involved the states in that decision so that we had input in that decision? And we got to have some say in how they altered the very nature of the constitutional protection of life? It's like, I don't remember that. Like, yeah, that didn't happen. So wasn't it great that when Congress tried to change the very nature of energy and how we use energy and deploy that, and they tried to change it, and 3 times they failed, and they couldn't pass it because the people wouldn't tolerate it, that the administrative agency just did it on their own. Unelected bureaucrats just said, we're going to completely change the nature of energy, property, and how you use your property in the United States. Wasn't it wonderful that they called this big meeting and they brought all the state representatives to Washington, and we sat down and we had this great discussion about what the problems are and what the proposed solutions might be? Wasn't it great that they did that? And he hadn't caught on yet. He's like, I don't remember that. Like, Ed, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Wasn't it really amazing that when land, I mean, I'm going to digress for just a second because that's what I do. Land. The only Supreme Court justice from Utah, George Sutherland, speaking to the New York Bar Association in 1921, said it's the right of property, not the right to property. Property has no rights. The right of property belongs to the man. Man has 3 great rights: life, liberty, property. He says they're so bound together as to be a single right. You give a man his life, take away his liberty, you take away all that makes life worth living. You give him his liberty, but take from him the property, which is the fruit and the badge of his liberty, you still leave him a slave. Property. Wasn't property is essential, it's the keystone of liberty. Right? Remember Lin Miranda, right? Because he could keep his property, his sweat, his mind, his ideas. Look at the things we can do to bless people. Wasn't it amazing then when a president of the United States decided he wanted to do something with millions of acres of property in our state? Wasn't it wonderful that he called a meeting and the states and the people that were most impacted by that decision, we had this great dialogue and discussion of what should happen. Wasn't that wonderful? And finally he was catching on. He's like, oh yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen, Ed. So what we're talking about in Article 5 is the states, who are the counterbalance, the sure guardians of the people's liberty, the counterbalance in this system, the check and balance in the system. We're talking about the representatives of the people that we elect to do our job, to secure these rights, convening in a meeting and talking about the problems. It's indisputed it's out of balance. Everyone agrees to that. Talking about the problems and then talking about proposals. Just talking about it. And we get in a meeting and we talk about the problems, we talk about proposals, and if we can agree on proposals, then we send them out to the people to say, hey, we got together and we talked about the problems, we talked about proposals, we talked about what it means to protect our life, liberty, and property, and we want you to decide if this is an appropriate way to fix that balance. And if you do, then it's enshrined in our governing document, and we'll live by it. If not, we'll start over. We'll try something else. If we can't do that, we don't deserve our Constitution. If we can't live by that basic law of discussing the problems and proposing solutions and allowing the people, who are the sovereign, possessing more sovereignty than the crowns and diadems of sovereign princes, if we can't do that, we're not a constitutional republic. I believe we are. I believe in the people. I believe in you. I'm glad you're here. It's for some reason we've had those that love power and control more than liberty and freedom. They're afraid of the freedom of the people. They've dialed up all sorts of stories to be afraid. I'm not afraid of the American people. Ronald Reagan, we just went to the Reagan Library a couple of weeks ago. So inspiring. So inspiring. On his epitaph that he wrote on his own monument where he and Nancy are buried, he says, I believe in my heart that man is good. That what is right will always eventually triumph. And that there is purpose and worth in every human life. I believe in my heart that man's good. I believe in my heart we're destined to govern ourselves, to use those powers to unleash our godlike creativity, bless people's lives. We're blessed in return. We secure these blessings for future generations. That's the work we're about. I think with that, maybe I'll take just a couple minutes of questions if you want. I mean, I'm happy to answer a couple questions. But that's what we're about, guys. That's what this is. I think this is the most important work in the United States of America right now. What you need to do right now is magnify your leverage, magnify your influence. You need to become 2 and 3 and 10. And then you work with your representatives, right? They work for you. You've hired them. You're the sovereign. You've hired them to, number one, secure this system. Protect the system that secures these rights. I'll give you just three little points that I think are the keys to this, and then I'm happy to answer some questions. I really got to run. I call it the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps of influence with the representatives we choose. Number 1 is personal. The more personal your contact, the better. Eye to eye, knee to knee, face to face contact is the gold standard. Voice to voice, if you can't get eye to eye, voice to voice is the next best. Writing a letter, handwritten letters, the next best. Personal contact. If you can only send an email, of course do that. If you're signing a petition, that's great. The more personal, the better. Professional. I'll tell you, I have a gentleman who, when I ran for office, he said, what can I do to help you? I don't want to be out in front of people. I don't speak. I don't have a lot of time. Can I manage your finances? I'm like, oh, bless your heart. He does my campaign finances. I never have to worry about them. And when he wants a meeting, when he has an issue, when he has a concern, when he has a question, I respond immediately. Because he blesses my life in such a professional way that he has my attention whenever he needs it. Persistent. There's a parable that it's the widow and the unjust judge. And it says there was a certain widow, and she was aggrieved, and she went to the judge, and the judge didn't regard man and didn't respect God. And he says, I don't care. And the widow kept coming, and finally the judge says, even though I don't regard man and I don't respect God, I'm going to give her what she wants, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Persistent. I can tell you of a constituent, Diane, I won't tell you your last name, but Diane was not personal, she was not professional, she was the epitome of persistence. Every week I knew I was getting a call from Diane. She had a certain workers' comp matter, an issue, and we ultimately passed some legislation. I knew every week I was getting a call from Diane. And it was not personal, it was not professional, it was kind of cranky and cantankerous. I don't recommend that. But if you have to follow only one, follow persistence. And every week when she would call, and if I hadn't got an answer to her question, I'd send her the voicemail because I had her in my contacts immediately, right? Because I knew. And then I would call legislative counsel and say, give me an answer to Diane's question. And then I'd call her back because I know she's going to call me next week if I don't. Right? Personal, professional, persistent. Bless you in what you're doing. We are definitely on the side of angels. God still cares about this country. He cares about liberty because He cares about His children. He cares about us. And this is the most blessed nation in the world. If we don't secure these rights and restore this system, who's going to protect these things? So bless you in what you're doing. Happy to answer a few questions.
You were the first simulation. Can you tell us a little bit about that
Oh
experience?
my gosh, that was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had.
It's not just added.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
I want to hear the experience.
it was kind of surprised. Mark Meckler called me up one day and he said, I want you to put your name in to run for president. I'm like, nah, I just, this has never been done before. I just kind of want to experience it. I want to kind of just see what's going on. And he's like, no, I really would like you to do that. And I'm pushing back. Finally he says, would you put your name in as a favor to me?
Persistent.
Right. Exactly right. So so I submit my name and I what an honor. I got elected by the delegates of all 50 states to preside over that convention. It was a simulation, right? I mean, this was pretend, but the seriousness and kind of the solemnity that people approached what they did was. It changed my view of what we were doing. It was just such an honor. People felt the power of what that is and what that can be, and we didn't agree. And there were Republicans and Democrats. It's probably a different mix than there would be in an officially called convention. But I'm not afraid of having representatives sitting down and discussing problems and solutions. We got to see that play out. The debate was so much fun. It was hard for me because I'm sitting up on the dais. I don't get to participate in the debate. I'm just the traffic cop. But it was such an honor. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to do that. But to see you had some crazy stuff. You had really amazing ideas. When you get in that kind of deliberative body, oftentimes we walk in, and of course we're the smartest people in the room, wherever we go. And then you sit down and start discussing something, and you go, oh my gosh, I've never thought of that. Here's somebody with a completely different life experience, a political experience in their state, and they come up with an idea, and I never considered that. And so then we start, you start massaging ideas and working on that and working together. And what an honor, tremendous experience. This is so absolutely doable. We'll be held accountable if we don't. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. If we can't drive the system, we don't deserve it. It was incredible. Thank you for your question. Other questions?
I like your being brief no matter how long it takes, mine. But really hit me was...
Which I don't follow, right?
But one story that you talked about flying the plane, that was huge.
Yeah, to be honest with my dad, every time we go up with him, he's passed about 2.5 years ago, but every time we go up, your engines went out, where are you going to land? Fly the plane, and it's true, right? Pilots, when they never take their hands off it's not the wheel, what do you call it? The stick. When you don't take your hands off the stick, you fly the plane until it stops. Pilots survive. It's such a great principle. No, thank you. Yeah.
We've seen the situation play out in several states where just one or two representatives or senators stymie our efforts. What advice would you give to overcome that and help have a broader discussion, even if it doesn't come to pass?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Idaho's had issues like that. Utah's had issues like that. A number of states do. I think leadership is key. Getting leadership on board early, and the key to that is 3 Ps. Personal, professional, persistent. You magnify your leverage. If you can go in with you eyeball to eyeball, and then you can go in with 5 or 10 people eyeball to eyeball, particularly if they're constituents, and you're just persistent, and they know in a very professional manner. I mean, we don't have to be bombastic like the other side is. Guys, this is the Constitution. We all swore it under. This is what we were given. How should we expect that God will bless and honor us if we don't make use of what He's already given us? How do we suppose that something different is the answer when this is what He gave us? So leadership, I think, is critical. If you get leadership on board in both houses, there's very little that can stop it. So I would focus my attention very early on that. I mean, in your state, you had the governor just come out in full support, put his personal influence on the line. I've got to think that was a huge thing. But then you guys mobilized 100,000 people, right? I mean, you had a whole number of people on. So growing our influence. If you can find 2 and 3 other people, and they can find 2 or 3 other people, kind of that multi-level liberty, right? We should know that really well in Utah, right? But I think leadership is critical. I think also finding sponsors. Not all representatives are equal. There are those that have a greater personal influence in their bodies. I think finding those people and other legislators, you have legislative friends, you find the people that have the greatest amount of personal influence in their bodies. Those people are critical. So there's some key points. I mean, it's kind of the Samuel Adams statement, right? It doesn't take a majority, it takes an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires in people's minds to win the day. And so you get that, that persistent minority. But yeah, I think that's really the key, getting with them. You're going to have, I mean, because of the fear factor, which I just fundamentally don't get it. We love the Constitution so much that we're afraid if we use the Constitution, we'll destroy the Constitution. And that's the argument. I do not understand it. But that's where they are. So I think we just personal, professional, persistent leadership and the people that carry the most influence in the body.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What would you suggest when the 3 Ps just aren't working? I've been reaching out to my state representative since I jumped on this a few months back. I've called probably 30 times, 20 emails, and literally not a word back.
Then you get a new representative.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, seriously, you get a new representative. If they won't respond to the people, then you say, I love you, I honor you for serving. Thank you. I know it's a great sacrifice. This issue is of such importance to me, to our community, to our state, to our nation, that I will do everything in my power. I will mobilize my leverage. I'm going to mobilize other groups. I'm going to find somebody else to represent, because you don't represent what is most important to our community and to our state. And quite honestly, I mean, you get a few of those, you put a few scalps on the wall, it makes a big difference. Yes.
In the next session in Utah, what do you think our big challenges are to get this thing moving?
It's always the Senate. It's
Yeah.
always the Senate.
Why?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there are a couple of these rocks in the middle of the stream in the Senate that have bottlenecked things over the last couple of years. We passed it twice in the House. I fully expect that we have a lot of changes. We have a lot of turnover in the House and in the Senate this year. I know that our House leadership is on board. I think that our Senate leadership may be more favorably disposed than ever to actually, and back to your point, so there's a difference between I support you and I'll be a champion. And so you want people that'll be a champion, and part of that is just the commitment pattern. Will you do this? Will you use your influence? Will you do everything to move your body? How can we help you? And that's always, how can we help you maximize your influence? How can we help you make this happen?